Well, Matt, I mean, like I can see why some people would be upset with prices, but the fact that you want Nintendo to charge $100 per game instead of
I want them to
80,
go. I want them to go all in, baby. I want to get push it to the limit.
it's just a weird
Just
take. Most people are
just
like,
to
is
give.
it okay or is it too much? And you're like, it's not enough. I mean, you're going
It's
all the way.
No, I want them to open the floodgates for Grand Theft Auto to be $150 when it eventually comes out. That's what I
Oh,
want.
baby.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Isn't like game pricing is one of the weirdest pricing indexes in the world
It is
because
strange. Yeah.
I've said this story on the podcast before, but when I was in like, it might have been middle school or high school, I went to GameStop and I bought Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. And it was a $70 game and it stayed $70. You know, it might have dropped a little bit in price at some point, but
Yeah, they were really expensive back then.
super expensive. And now games are mostly not that much unless it's a Nintendo game, in which case it's like 60 or 70.
And they never go on sale.
They never go on. If it's a Nintendo owned IP, it never goes on sale. If it's a different IP, it can go on sale, I think. But yeah, Nintendo just doesn't drop their prices. And then they announced that the new Mario Kart game is going to be like 80, or I should say it's a suggested retail price, which means retailers can charge less, but I don't know why you would, you know, like they're getting it for a certain price. They're probably going to want to do the standard markup. Otherwise it's not worth selling. So $80 for Mario Kart on this Switch 2. What do you think? You think that's reasonable?
Well, that's for the digital. I don't think maybe I am not up to date, but the digital is 80 and then the physical is 90.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That might be inaccurate, but I was trying to get the actual numbers today and somebody was like, none of them are 90. Like it was people not translating properly for like euros.
Okay. Because that's what everyone was saying a couple of days ago when everything was announced. It was like 80 digital and then 90 physical. So I could be out of date on that.
Yeah, I do think it's 80, but anyway, we'll just leave it at the prices are very high for
very high.
A game that no doubt is going to be a cool game. You know, it's Mario Kart. It's not like Mario Kart games are like phenomenal. They're fun little racing games, and it's going to be on a system that is likely a bit underpowered compared to the top of the line PlayStation and Xbox offerings, let alone PC. So and they're charging just this insane premium price for it because it's Nintendo. They can kind of do it. But then we're also playing with this, like the world's going through inflation and stock market crashes and all this craziness. The fun headline around Nintendo stuff is that they canceled pre-orders for the Switch 2 just recently because of how the stock market, or not the stock, the tariffs are going right now in the States, right? Because they're like, we don't know what the import price is going to be on this hardware. I assume the units have not yet arrived in the States because it's got a release date of like, I want to say, I wrote it down, June 5th. So
sounds right.
They probably haven't arrived in the States yet, you know, would be my guess. So they still got to pay import taxes and they don't know what they're going to charge on those import taxes. So, I mean, are we looking at like a potential Switch 2 price hike before they land? You know, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean the fact that it's 450 base, correct, for the console itself.
Yeah.
And like it's clearly a more powerful console than the Switch, but it doesn't look like it's that much more powerful. And then you've got the $80 price tag, potentially more, depending on where you are in the world because of what's going on right now. I've had many people say that like it's just not feasible for them to buy a Switch 2. Like for your diehard fans, yeah, they'll buy it because they're the diehard fans. But the more casual player base that would have maybe jumped in sooner may have to hold off or just not pick it up at all. So we'll see. The invisible hand of the market might come on in and be like, oh, you really wanted to go for 80. Well, that you thought that would make you more money. And it might. But it could also just mean significantly less sales, which hurts them in the long run. We'll see.
This is, I mean, not to put all the blame on Nintendo, because I do think they're like, yes, they are at the top end of the price spectrum when it comes to pricing out their consoles and their games. But also they're launching into one of the worst possible market situations of all time, which is like crazy tariffs going. Like, I think they announced the price of the Nintendo the day of or the day before that the blanket tariff plan went into effect. And then they're like,
I think you're right.
Okay, now what
Yeah.
do we do? I've talked to a lot of people in the industry about this who are dealing with physical products and stuff, board game industry, stuff like that. There's like board game companies that are just like, we kind of have to like just shut the doors. Like, we can't make anything new right now because it's costing us like something like 45% more to like import the stuff.
Jesus.
So they're like, our margins are like, they just evaporated. Like, the stuff that we kickstarted is we're now taking a loss on. Like, there's no way we're going to see a profit on it. So you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. So Nintendo's huge company jumping right into the middle of this. We don't know how much money they might potentially actually lose because of this on the back end. So while we're complaining, going, these prices are crazy, which, you know, they are. They're hard for people to afford right now, especially with everything happening in the economy and all that stuff. And then the prices are going up. And then Nintendo on top of that might even lose money because of this. Pretty wild time. And I feel bad that they have to launch in the middle of this, regardless of the crazy prices and stuff that they're trying to push on the consumers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I actually know anything about the economy because I don't.
I don't either. I know what a tariff is.
Yeah, I know basic things like that, but I don't know the implications of how those tariffs are then going to, you know, spread out between, you know, to all the different facets of increasing prices for materials and how much that actually will increase the price depending on which region you're in. And that stuff is definitely going to go way over my head. But you're right. It is definitely a rough time to be launching a new console. And on top of that, to then also be increasing the price to $80 for their games is it's gonna be just to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when you look at things like technology, where the Nintendo is kind of a global platform at this point. Like, people in many countries around the world will buy it.
Yeah, it's Nintendo.
Yeah, where like a tariff makes sense. Where you're like, we're gonna put an import tariff on steel so that we'll mine more steel over here and use our steel places. But when it's like a Nintendo console, you're like, well, they're going to build that in one place. So there's going to be tariffs.
They're not going to build a Nintendo factory in the United States, right?
Or like, every country that needs a Nintendo.
Right.
Like, that's nonsense. So yeah, it's going to...
Once again, I'm not an economist. I don't know how this all works, but
nor am I. It'll just be interesting. I don't want to pay more for a Switch 2. I already think the price is pretty high. And the Switch 1, man, it's just like when the OLED edition came out, I'm just like, well, I'd love to see these games in OLED, but I'm not trading that. Yeah, you're like, it's an OLED. Apparently it had better hardware, but they gated it just to make game parity, you know, so you couldn't run a game faster on the OLED. And you're like, great.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that. That's
I
awful.
believe that's what I heard. It could be
okay.
I don't know. I didn't dig into the hardware, but anyway, I think we're kind of, the market's set up for platforms like Switch and stuff to start taking over, because I took a week off from the podcast, so welcome back.
Yeah,
everybody.
How dare you? By the way, you know what? I was gonna start the podcast by shaming you for taking a day off. I thought we had an agreement, LevelCap.
This is very.
I thought we sat down. We signed a contract together that we were here ride or die until the very end, and then you take a week off to spend time with your family, to create memories with your family. Yeah. Unbelievable.
It was, you know what? It was nice to take a little bit of a week off. I'm not gonna lie. Getting out of the workaholic mentality for a week is just like, you know, I'm going through withdrawal basically.
Yep.
Luckily, I downloaded Balatro on my phone.
Nice.
Before we left, and then I was able to...
First time playing it?
Yeah. And I was able to neglect my family the whole trip by just playing Balatro the whole time.
Fantastic.
Yeah. No, I had a great time, but I did get deep into Balatro, and I'm just like... it's such a good mobile game, because you're just like, man, I can just... What's so great about it is even because runs can take a little while, you know, you spend a little time on a run, but you just stop it at any moment and your run is saved exactly where it is on the phone. And so You're just like, oh, okay, like I'll come back to this hand later. No big deal. I don't have to wait till anything's done. I can literally shut it off mid gameplay and come back to it. So it's like, it's kind of perfect mobile gaming. Interface works great. I beat it relatively fast initially, and
I didn't.
I had just picked a strategy that did well by just happenstance. I just like ended up going for that. Then I proceeded to lose like the next 4 games, and was just like, what the F is going on?
What's happening?
Then I came back to my original strategy because I kept trying all these like elaborate, like I'm going to try for some sort of straight strategy or straight flush or whatever. And they never panned out in the end, Then I just come back to like really basic, like pair, 2-pair or high card strategies. And all of a sudden I'm just like winning every time. And then I start reading up on some strategy guide stuff, and people are like, yeah, that's kind of like the most consistent and best way to win. And so initially I got annoyed that I couldn't be quite as experimental with my decks. And then as I progressed more with it, started unlocking more cards and new decks and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, you can kind of make some of these other strategies work. But it just takes a little time to like get in that groove. Regardless, really enjoyed the roguelike poker Hold'em-esque game. It's fun, man.
It
super
won all the
addictive.
awards for a reason.
Yeah. Oh my God, the money they must have made off of that game. Also, I think the mobile version like outsold any other platform version, and I'm like, yeah, it totally makes sense. It's feature parity.
How much does it cost for mobile?
I think it's like $5 or something.
Okay, so it was a paid product. Okay, it's just weird hearing mobile being paid products because it like. I feel like the mobile market is so adverse to anything that requires money transaction.
Yeah, I think they still exist, and I think it's more in the indie market zone where like all the big studios are like live service, free to play, and that's just their angle for everything, and it's just a nightmare monetized thing. Yeah, Balatro was not that at all on the phone. It's just like, play your game. We're not going to bug you.
This is the price, and have fun. How it should be, honestly.
Yeah, you paid $5, and we'll leave you alone and let you play the game and enjoy it. But yeah, fantastic game. I know I'm kind of late to the scene, but finally getting around to it, and I have to stop playing it because I'm like, there's so many achievements and progression things that you can do in that, where you're just like, well, I can try on the next difficulty. And now there's like however many decks, 10 decks or 13 or so, whatever it is. And then you upgrade those and you play them at higher ranks. And then you're like, well, I can keep going. And you unlock new Joker cards and new stuff that appears. And
tons of replay value.
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun when you get a deck that's really jiving and you like drop a hand that like scores over 1 million points or something, and you're just like, what up? The
dopamine hit.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. And then like also when you get into that situation where you're like, you have to get a specific card on and
then you finally get it.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna make it through, or I'm gonna beat the boss, like.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they throw crazy bosses at you sometimes that are like, you can only play one hand type once or something like that, and you're like, my whole deck is built around flush.
My favorite is when I completely misread, like, you can only play one hand, and so I'm like, I can only do this all in one hand. It's like, no, no. It was one type. And I was like, I see.
Actually, I don't know how it is on the PC, if there's like more tool tips or something, but on mobile, it'll give in like a 1-line instruction for how a card works. And then you're like trying to press on like, well, give me clarification on this term. And it's just like, there's nothing there.
Yeah, that was something I had to use kind of learn through trial and error.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple vouchers and jokers that I was like, oh, this seems pretty good. And then like I apply it and it's like, no, that's not what it did. And it like totally exploded my run. And I was just like, okay, cool. Well, that's a fun learning. Yeah. Then I started Googling it before I'd like buy a card for my deck. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's not in fact good. That's going to destroy everything I want.
Smart.
Yeah. It's very fun.
I liked it.
Yeah. A little weighted towards RNG in terms of just like sometimes you get amazing jokers that are just like,
and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, one good joker can like set you up for like the first 3 or 4 antes, And then you're just like, okay, well, that was easy. I'm already scoring like 10K a hand on like the first round or the second round because I got this amazing chrome rare joker that does all this cool stuff. And then other games, you're like, I got like 5 jokers and I'm barely squeezing by.
And they're all trash.
Yeah, complete trash. So there's it's a little heavy on RNG, but then again, that is the nature of poker, right? It's all luck of the draw at the end of the day.
Yeah. But it doesn't actually play like poker at all. So
yeah. Well, that's the fun.
I want to bring that up because they keep getting, there's all these different like governments and stuff like they keep like, oh, it's actually a mature game, and it's like, what do you mean? They got that
redacted or reversed in like, I forgot where it was maybe the UK or some European country where it got rated as like 18 plus or a mature game, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like any card game that uses a poker rule set. Like, you don't.
Right.
We're not.
If it had a completely different aesthetic, they wouldn't have been. It literally wouldn't have been flagged at all.
Yeah. Plus, they're not getting you to buy anything in game. You're not like buying card packs or anything like that. So you're like, you can't even spend money from the addictive part of it.
It's just government bodies being way too slow and behind the times, honestly. That's just all it means. They're just out of touch.
I know. The digital sphere is so alien to them. They're like, my kid plays Minecraft. And you're like, all right, get out of here. Don't stop writing policy on games.
Yeah. Did you see before we get into that, $80, do you think that's going to be the new norm for video games now? Do you think every company's going to be pumping up to 80?
No, because we have the world market to regulate stuff like Steam games, and I think unless the economy does better, companies are going to do the math and they'll go, okay, well, if we sell this game for $60, we're going to sell 20% less. And if we sell it for this amount, we'll sell the full amount. So we'll ultimately
you don't see them actually going up.
Maybe in Nintendo because it's an enclosed market, right? Nintendo's kind of like the Apple of the game industry where they have this weird little like enclosed fan base. They control everything that happens in this sphere. And then they can just upcharge everything where you're just like, it didn't cost that much to make the game. But you're going to sell it for way more than that, where you're like, why am I paying $1,300 for an iPhone or whatever I don't know what they cost. I haven't looked at Apple phone prices in forever.
$2 million now.
$2 million now. And I remember reading like a decade ago that Apple was making like $500 for every phone purchase. Like that's how much they were marking it up. And you're just like, that's what they can do when you control a market like that. So Nintendo's kind of special. I don't think other companies are going to follow suit with what Nintendo's doing, but I do know, it's like the gaming market's so crazy because we have top tier free to play games, right? Like incredible games that don't cost you a dime to get into and play. And then you can actually get a lot of content and value out of them, even without spending a dime. And then you've got games from Nintendo that cost $80 and they're like, that's what you get it. And maybe there'll be DLC later, but they're going to charge you for the DLC anyway. So you're like, dang, you just got these two completely polar opposite approaches to making games.
So that's a good perspective. I didn't think of it that way. But I do think that it's going to open the door. And I think that if it goes well for Nintendo, I do think that we're going to see some publishers dip their toes in every once in a while and be like, this game is actually $80.
Well, it's a quadruple A game like Ubisoft. Yeah.
Well, they won't even call it quadruple A. They'll just be like, it's like Nintendo. It's $80 now. Yeah. And it may not happen overnight. It may not happen in like a year, but I have a feeling it's going to open the door and we're going to see. We're not going to be this $70 price tag. The worry I have is we're not going to be at this price tag for much longer, and they are going to bump it up because, money.
I think we'll see more price.
Especially Grand Theft Auto when that launches. Holy cow. I could easily see them pumping that sucker up.
They could charge $150. You're right. If they wanted to,
I don't actually want them to clarify.
No, I know that, but they could. And you're like, yeah, they're going to lose X amount % in sales, but people are going to be like, this will just be my one game purchase for the year. And then they'll just play that game. Which is crazy to think about, but they probably could. I think, so we have seen the industry kind of adapt to totally different situations where that combat flight simulator game. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Drewski plays it all the time.
Can tell you.
There's an acronym for it, but it's the highly realistic flight sim game where it takes them like a year or more just to add a new aircraft to the game because they're modeling out the interior so accurately. It's very niche. It's very expensive to do that. The company's gotten a bunch of flack for some weird stuff in the past, but they charge a premium for like each jet DLC. It's like $80 or $100 or like, it's like a lot. But there's that market for it. It's the guys who buy all the flight sim stuff and they spent like thousands of dollars on sim pit gear to have that super authentic experience. So you're like, okay, like I can understand that. It sort of makes sense because you've got a niche market. You're never going to sell 1 billion copies of this game. So you have to charge a premium to a small diehard fan base. And that's the only way that works. So I do support those types of concepts, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the deal is with Nintendo. It feels like they always deliver good games. Like they rarely. I don't think they've had a bad Mario Kart game. You know, like have they ever launched a Mario game that people were like, "This is crap"? You know, like they're almost all pretty good. You know,
for the most part, yeah. I think they've always been very well received.
Yeah, but I think they also haven't been super innovative. You know, they've been like, at the same time, you're like, how much do you want to innovate Mario Kart? You're like, it's a racing game. Like you can only innovate racing so much.
Well, they're going open world now.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't actually look up the new Mario Kart stuff. What does an open world racing game mean?
You can literally drive around the world and go anywhere and free roam. Like you can in more like modern Forza games and stuff, right? You can just drive around.
Are they going to have track builder in it? That'd be kind of cool.
That I don't know.
Yeah. Because what is that? Mario Maker or something where you can make your own Mario levels and stuff? Yeah. I could totally see them doing that with Mario Kart. That'd be pretty cool. I think you're onto something. It's like when the pandemic happened and automakers ramped up the price of all cars. And now we're out of the pandemic and the prices are still high.
Level. Yeah, they're like, we're not going down. We're not gonna lower the price. Who do you think you are?
So now if you want a minivan for the family, it's like $60,000 and you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Bro, I don't know how people afford all these trucks. You look around and there's trucks everywhere. I'm like, how are you doing this, people?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this to yourself? Because they ain't cheap.
Yeah, it's a lot of people being really dumb. I've seen people buying like the Ford Raptor, you know, which I think is like $100,000 or more. It's like a really expensive truck.
Why?
But then they live in an apartment where the rent is like, it's just like a crappy little apartment. You're like, your car cost, your monthly car cost has got to be around the price of your actual rent, you know? So there's just a lot of...
Starts at $80,000.
Starts at $80,000 and probably everybody's buying the like $100,000 model because you want the cool rims and sound system and leather seats and all that fun stuff. But I think there's just a lot of financial irresponsibility for whatever reason. You know, people just can't...
But why trucks of all things? That's what blows me away is like... Yeah, kind of, you know, it's at least it's got the ability to haul stuff but I would love to know the percentage of people that actually use a truck for...
I think it's like, I looked it up. I think it's like 3% or something. It's like a super small percentage where...
I mean, maybe they go on vacation every once in a while out in the wilderness and they backpack or what have you. Maybe they have like a boat or something they haul out to a lake. But yeah, I'm always blown away. If you go walk down like any neighborhood and you'll just be like, there's a truck. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And just speaking personally... Having driven trucks, having driven small cars, it's more fun to drive a small zippy car around, you know, but I don't like doing it next to a massive like truck or mega SUV that like, if they are texting on their phone and hit you, you're the one that gets flattened. And they're like, did I hit something? You know, and you're like, cool. So I'm paying the price now for driving next to these behemoths.
Yeah. You shouldn't have gotten the Bugatti.
I know. Well, I mean, anything, you know, the Corolla, my souped up Corolla. That's what I'm driving these days. I had what was your first car, Matt? What'd you drive?
A Subaru.
Oh,
I've had my Subaru for like 20 years. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you're still your first car, your Subaru Forester. There's like a new pop song that's like, I think it's called "I'm in Love," but he's in love with his Subaru.
I mean, it's a great car.
Yeah, I've got one too.
I mean, it like, you know, it gets to zero. It goes 0 to 60 eventually. So, you know,
Yeah,
it gets there. It gets there now.
Yeah, it's
I'm
fine.
probably due to get a new car, but with the way things are going, I might have to pump the brakes on that too. Did you hear?
Yes.
Did you hear the news about Battlefield?
I've heard many news. I'm not sure which one specifically you're referring to.
Well, it was hard for me to avoid because the content creators that I follow, like Stod and Jack, they all had like in their title of their videos, Battlefield potentially coming with Battle Royale and United States maps, where there was some concept art that was from places in the United States.
Yep.
So there might be some like urban United States combat for Battlefield.
Finally, it's so funny. I dropped a video on this today as well.
Okay.
And finally back from my vacation, I can cover the news, you know. But
yeah, getting caught up.
This game is like, on one hand, I'm like, finally, DICE is doing like something good or what fans have wanted forever. On the other hand, I'm like, this is like the lowest hanging fruit that DICE has neglected for so long. And now that they're finally picking that fruit by going, oh, here's a map in the United States. Here's modern military conflict. We're going to have higher fidelity destruction. You know, like the most obvious things that gamers have been asking for forever. I'm like, yeah, finally, you know, you guys could have had a dominant franchise for the last decade, but you didn't. And now we're kind of hoping that this is enough to get them back on the scene by doing, a battle in New York City, a battle in Los Angeles with modern military conflict. Like, cool. Yeah, that's a neat concept. I want to play that game. Finally, you know, so
finally, yeah.
I think I'm just bitter about it to an extent where I'm just like, man, DICE, you've been screwing around for so long with all these obvious things to do for your franchise. And now people are like, whoa, it's so exciting. I'm like, I guess it's so obvious though. They should have done it 10 years ago. You know, I'm sure I had videos saying, why don't you do this 10 years ago?
I agree. I think they got sidetracked with Battlefield 2042. I think they were trying to make something new with their extraction mode. I think they were trying to jump on that bandwagon and it just failed miserably, and they had to cut they just had to cut it off and be like, okay, we have to make a Battlefield now. And then that's how 2042 became about. I don't have anything to back it up. It's just a theory, but all the signs point that way, right? So that was like a really big detour for them. And now they're trying to course correct and be like, okay, no, we have the foundation. We know we can do. We just need to do it now. And I think you're right. I think the US maps will be, hopefully they'll be really good and iconic.
Yeah. And then the other part of that is a allegedly free-to-play battle royale / round-based elimination mode. So they're going to have two different modes. Allegedly, this is all according to data mining.
Yeah.
But it does look exciting in that they're finally adding in the free-to-play component to a Battlefield game, which is like COD jumped on that bandwagon so early, and Battlefield had the opportunity to do it. Battlefield 5, Firestorm. Everybody was like, why is Firestorm behind a $50 paywall for a game that is getting bombed like with reviews right now? Like, it's just going to crash and burn, even though there's a lot of good stuff happening. And like, I still think Firestorm is like, it's kind of like a cult royale. Yeah, it's like a cult royale game in which it did things better than I've seen any game ever do before. Like the fire ring destruction was incredible. Being able to blow open buildings and get that guy camping at the top of the stairs by just like blowing out the wall behind him and shooting him in the back. You're like, this is amazing. It fixes all of my issues with like building campers and every other royale / extraction shooter. And it deserved more, but it didn't get it because it was just like this completely tone deaf approach from the marketing team on how to like promote that game. And so they never really got their chance. And then they just kept fumbling with the extraction mode in 2042 and all that other stuff. And so finally they're doing the right thing. And that's just what that seems to be the theme of this game is finally they're doing the thing we've wanted
Fingers crossed.
That we said that they should be doing forever ago. So
do we think that it's a little too late though for battle royales? Because I feel like that market has maybe, I wouldn't say it's shrunk.
The hype isn't like, palpable for those games anymore.
Right.
People aren't like, oh, the next battle royale. It's like you really have to work to try and break into the battle royale market. And even then it's like COD and Warzone have been at it for so long that they've got their market. PUBG's got kind of like the Asian market for royales now. Yep. Like they've all sort of decided on what their top royale game is. So breaking into that's hard.
It could be a cool mode though, because the one thing that would set them apart, as you mentioned, is that destructibility. And if you're in like a giant city, maybe it's like, it looks like a US city or something, and it's got tons of detail and there's tons of ways for you to approach, moving around the map. And then on top of that, you've got that destructibility. If that becomes like the core feature, it could just be a very exciting experience. And not only just experience to play, but also to watch, which can really help out with their numbers too, for like a viewership perspective, right? So it could be awesome. One concern I've heard is, what does this mean for resource allocation? People are like, don't spend time on a battle royale. Just focus on the main game mode. And I kind of agree with that to some extent. But it seems like they've got so many devs working on this project, different studios. My assumption is they've got their core crew working on the base game. And then they've got, I think, probably Criterion or someone else working on the battle royale. So it doesn't, they're obviously going to be working together, but it's not like, I don't know if they really would benefit from having
that
another
part is
studio
not a
working on it.
concern to me at all. They have more employees. They've said this so many times, but they have more employees working on this next title or group of titles, whatever they are, than they ever had at any other point in history with the Battlefield franchise. So I
think what some people are saying is, instead of focusing, like if those, I agree. I do agree. I think that you can only have so many people working on the core game before it just becomes too overbloated, right?
Yeah.
So have like a separate team working on a completely different mode makes sense. But also people could say, well, that other team could have been working on more maps. So instead of just the 10 maps or whatever we're going to get at launch, it could have been like 20 maps, right? It could have been more content that the core community would appreciate it, instead of just something that may work and may not. But we'll have to see.
There's a certain point too where you're just like, it's diminishing returns, right? The difference between 10 and 20 maps is substantial in terms of workload and balance and all that. And then if you don't have time to properly balance all 20 of those maps, then you've got like 10 maps that are good and 10 that kind of suck. And then,
well, you're right, but I hear you. But man, can you imagine a Battlefield launching with like 15 maps?
That would be cool. Yeah. Honestly, like a more evolved game mode would excite me a little more. Cause like different maps are fun for changing up the scenery and creating a few different choke points here and there, but changing up the modes more, I think, is more exciting. And that new mode that they talked about, that could be something to keep your eye on, right? Because I think that other mode is going to be free to play, and I believe it's going to be on the same map as the Royale mode.
What is this?
So this mode basically is a finals style elimination mode where, and I might be representing it a little bit. It's kind of hard to know from the descriptions of it, but basically,
little game of telephone. Also, these are like leaks.
This is data mine stuff. So it's people trying to figure out what a game mode is like based on files as opposed to watching a gameplay video.
Right. So this could all be completely wrong.
Yes. But basically it randomizes and or mixes up game modes like capture the flag and like get the objective or find the thing or whatever, throws teams in. It happens apparently on the larger Battle Royale map, I think. And then you're, I believe, paired up, or like the top teams move on and the bottom teams get kicked out. So it's sort of like a Royale style experience, but it sounds like it doesn't need the same logic as a classic Royale where teams are getting eliminated if you don't complete your objective, right? And I assume it's like a game of musical chairs where like says capture the data links or something, right? And you're like, okay, well, there's 4 data links and 8 teams. Like only 4 of the teams are going to move on. So let's see what happens in this round. And I like that concept. It's sort of Royale meets the finals, and if that works, it could be really cool. I think they have to try something new, and I think evolving the classic Royale formula into something else is a pretty solid bet, because there's still excitement around the game mode for the Royale still works, as long as and to get new players in, you have to excite them with a fun twist on it, right? So you're like, okay,
yeah,
win condition is still the most exciting part of a Royale because it's just crazy hype intense at the end. But, just saying it's a battle Royale, but it's Battlefield now is not enough to get people to jump ship necessarily.
It's Royale, the classic Battlefield 5 from Lars. Is that name right? Lars?
Yeah. But I mean, BF5 kind of had it to an extent where they're like vehicles. First time we're seeing like a lot of vehicle mixed with infantry combat in a Royale setting. And then full destruction. And then, man, when that fire circle came in and it leveled a building that a dude was camping in, like, come on. Like, this is so cool. How many times is that tactic used in like PUBG, where the circle comes in and you're waiting for the guy to jump out of the building and then he doesn't, and then you have to like run back and everybody's just kind of waiting at the circle, and you're like, no, that eliminates all that bull crap, it gets rid of it and it moves the game along, and you're like, yeah, that's fun. There's so many good things there that were just undercooked, man. Just an undercooked game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. We'll see. I know people are a little hesitant, but I'm hopeful that the base game is their priority. And I'm sure it is their priority, but I'm always down for new game modes as well, as long as they're well thought out. And
they got that single player too, man, or the campaign, whatever it is. I'm sure it'll be co-op or something.
Yeah.
This is a semi off topic, but probably a good lesson for any big studio launching a mega game trying to get the most sales. But the Capcom was talking about how Monster Hunter Wilds sold over 10 million copies and just saw huge success. And they're just like, this is due to the game being cross-play, having co-op type features, and launching simultaneously on all the different platforms. And they're like, they just basically were like, if you can do that, like all of a sudden you're not losing word of mouth sales due to your game not working on other stuff, And if you're like, oh man, I'm having so much fun playing Monster Hunter Wilds on my Xbox and I don't have an Xbox, and I can still play with you on my PC. Now you've got those word of mouth sales. You've got that I can play with my friend, and they're on that. So hopefully, I'm sure like DICE has done that, I believe, with the past games, and they've gotten on board. But it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, where you're like, yeah, it's sort of it's not like an easy thing to do to have cross-play and simultaneous launches. That's a huge amount of overhead and stuff for companies to actually have to deal with and get working properly. But the payoff seems to be absolutely phenomenal, as Monster Hunter Wilds was describing.
I think there's a couple more factors involved. It
was a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good game, and they've had word of mouth for a while now. They've been kind of slowly building up steam, kind of like what the From Software's sort of origin as well, where each game is becoming more and more popular, and then it booms out of nowhere. But who would have thought, when you actually release a game on all platforms and you deliver a decent product and people can play it with their buddies, that people will buy it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Wonder how one more reason for Nintendo to hike the prices on their games, because they don't have that crossplay with a Nintendo exclusive title. I think there is some crossplay maybe with some other third-party titles on the Switch and something else, but
that I wouldn't know.
That's going to hurt them, I think, in the long run, where all these I think games are going to become more and more platform agnostic,
Yes.
And then eventually we're all going to kind of just end up on some version of a PC, whether it's like a Steam PC or like a console box that's running Microsoft software, but essentially it's just a PC running a game, whatever. Yeah, I think Microsoft is working on their Steam OS competitor, essentially, like a free operating system that you can build like a gaming machine out of or something like that. So they've got all that going for them, which is kind of platform agnostic, like an agnostic box that plays games and you can play it with any of your friends. And then Nintendo's like, no, come join our inclusive cult over here where we charge $80 a game and it runs slower. You know, I remember buying Hades on the Switch and kind of regretting it after the Steam Deck came out and being like, man, I should have bought this on the Steam Deck. Then I could have played it on the Steam Deck. I could have played it on my PC. I could have hooked up the Steam Deck to my TV and played it on my TV with a controller input. Like, just have all these options. And then playing it on the Switch, the performance was bad. It was limited to like 720p. And I remember playing it on the TV and seeing it lag. And I'm like, this is Hades. You know, it's not like a graphically intensive game.
It looks good. Its art style is nice, but it's definitely not the most graphically intensive game out there.
Yeah.
And I think the Steam Deck's base version is now going to be cheaper than the Switch 2. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens when they start selling. You know, how many people are actually going to pick it up? We'll find out.
I was talking to a publisher a week ago, and they were talking about how like last gen console sales for a lot of titles has just flipped to like the next gen, where they're like,
oh wow,
yeah, where like certain titles were like seeing their revenue had always been stronger in like the PlayStation 4, and then they're like, it just switched to PS5, you know, and you're like, dang, that's a pretty big lag in a lot of these markets. So that'll be interesting too, is like Switch 2 adoption rates might be pretty slow if the prices of everything are that high. Thankfully, it's backward compatible for the first time ever for a Nintendo platform.
For a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, like finally Nintendo's catching up to like stuff that the other platforms have been doing for quite a while now. And PC's been doing forever, just about, you know?
Just about.
Just about. You can technically mod.
For most stuff. The older stuff, maybe not so much, but yeah.
The ancient Windows 95 and DOS games, you can play them, but you got to do a little bit of work to get them up and running.
Yep.
I've been there. It's fun. That's back in the day when games would set the pacing, the actual speed at which the game ran based on the CPU cycle rate. So like if you booted up the game on a modern PC, it would play like twice as fast. Like everything would occur twice as fast.
Right. Frame rate, yeah.
Yeah, you weren't just getting higher frame rate. You were being like, oh, I'm dead instantly because the AI are moving
20,000 things just flew at me, yeah.
Yeah. That always cracked me up because you're just like, yeah, back in the day, they're just like, I mean, how quickly is computer tech going to progress? We'll just base this game's speed based on the speed of the CPU. Yeah. Funny stuff. Yeah. So what have you been... I want to ask you about Atomfall, actually, because it looks super cool.
It is really cool. Yeah. So it is a... How do you describe Atomfall? So a lot of people went into it
looks like a BioShock game.
Yeah, in some ways. Yeah, kind of. I've heard so many comparisons. I've heard it's like Stalker. I've heard it's like Fallout, BioShock. And it kind of has a lot of those elements. The best way to describe it is that it is you wake up in a bunker and you don't know who you are and you're in this containment zone and you need to try to escape and get out. And the game doesn't really tell you how to do that. And so you go out in this world and you talk to people and you take out bandits. And you try to kind of piece together what happened in this area. Why is this area in a containment? And try to escape from the zone.
Yeah.
What's cool is how much freedom they give you to tackle the problem, because you can go at however you want. It's very horizontal, where it starts off in one point. And then you can just branch out to literally all these different routes and ways. And then eventually it narrows back down into the very end where you escape somehow, right?
Yeah.
But getting to the end is wholly up to you. You can side with different factions. There's different factions around where if you do quests for them, you will be able to eventually, it'll kind of guide you to your destination. But sometimes you can like pull a one over on them and like get to the end another way. It's the freedom it gives you is really cool. So I really love the exploration and the creativity of the quests and the freedom it gives you to tackle these problems. It's hands down the best part. Hands down. But it's pretty short. I beat it in about 12 hours, 13 hours maybe. So it's not very long. And it does get a little bit repetitive with the combat. By the end, I was sort of just like, okay, I'm ready for this game to be over because like I'm fighting the same enemies. The AI is basic, but it does the job for what it needs to do within that 12 hours. And yeah, I liked it. I really did like it, but it definitely by the 12 hours, even though it is quite short, I was like, okay, I'm ready to be done.
So it allows you to tackle the problem in many different ways, but there maybe isn't as much combat variety in there or something, or
so it's the variety in the combat isn't the best part, right? You will find enemies that will literally just charge at you. They'll just run at you in a line, and you'll just be like headshot, 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 headshot. I saw some streamers that were playing, and they just kept climbing up the ladder. He got shot in the face. Another guy would climb up the ladder, shot in the face. Like so, the AI it's fine for what it's doing. I think on top of that, there's only so many weapons, and there's melee combat, but the melee combat doesn't feel the tightest. There's no block, and there's no parry, and there's no dodge. And so the only way for you to like melee is do this like weird dance where you're like, I'm gonna hit you. Oh nope, not gonna hit you with the AI, which feels
classic
weird.
Melee system. Yeah.
You can kick them to stun them, which kind of negates that a little bit, but it's a little janky. I feel like the melee could have been a little bit better.
Yeah.
The reason why I think I loved the exploration so much is, how do I describe this? So there's a quest where you can save someone, and then they'll tell you where this really valuable item is located, right? And you don't have to save them if you don't want to. You could have just found the item and then pieced out. You could have found the item organically and then just completely ignored them. If you do save them, it will then progress the story in another way. Like it branches, right? There's another person who will make the item for you. So that's kind of what I mean by the freedom, right? So you need this item. It's important. But the ways that you get that item can be achieved by exploration. It can be achieved by different quests, multiple different quests to get to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So it sounds like they're trying to create a lot of replayability, but maybe the gameplay didn't quite live up to like the replayability side of it, or
I could easily see people playing this like a couple of times. But yeah, I do think the AI would be the one thing that would kind of like limit it a little bit. Yeah.
What do you think? That's always like this weird thing with games is some people are like, oh, 12 hours too short. And then you get a 100-hour game. You're like, oh, way too long, and, or whatever. Every gamer wants something different, so to speak. It's kind of a tricky problem to solve because if you make a game that's too long and your gameplay, it doesn't have enough new stuff in it, or it gets too repetitive, then you've created a situation in which the game feels laborious, right? So now people are like, this game's too long. And you're like, well, it's only an 8-hour game. It's like, well, that's, I guess we didn't create enough interesting stuff.
That's bad. Yeah.
And then if you have a 50-hour game that feels too short, it's like, okay, cool. Well, you have a lot of like cool versatility in there and evolution of stuff. And I think that's why the roguelike is so popular, because it forces you to change up your gameplay style so much, even though a whole playthrough can be like 30 or 40 minutes or something. You're like, people are getting hundreds of hours out of it.
I thought that the runtime was solid for what game they delivered. I actually really like that Rebellion, that they're the ones who made it. They're the same people that make the Sniper Elite franchise. They made a different game, right? It's very different. It's new. I would have expected that their stealth mechanics would have been a little bit better, and this is probably also due in part because the AI, because like it's Rebellion. They make literally a game all about stealth, right?
Yeah.
So I was maybe a little bit let down by that, but don't let these like negatives that I'm describing deter you from playing, because I think that it is really fun. I think that they've made something that feels kind of old school. And as I said, I love that exploration and just the freedom it gives you to tackle these quests. So yeah, I liked it. I think it's a solid game. Though the ending was a little disappointing. I was a little let down by the ending.
Unfortunate. Okay, well, I saw a lot of good reviews or praise of the game, so I was kind of curious about it. Cool.
It's good.
Yeah. What did you think of? Did you play the new Path of Exile 2 update?
I have not, no, but I've heard all the drama. There's plenty of tea, as the kids say.
Plenty.
I'm probably not using that right.
Yeah, I don't know. Iced tea? Yeah.
No. But people are not happy with it right now. At least some people are not happy with it.
Okay. And why is that? Why are they not happy?
So because I haven't played it, but apparently
it's still early access, right?
It is early access, yeah. But they're making it apparently it's just too hard. It's too difficult. It's too laborious. You will have to feel like you're struggling for your life when you're going against white mobs, where it's just like, why am I having to have to try this hard against every single white pack out there? You know, maybe for a boss, right? I should be really struggling, but this is just silly, right?
Yeah.
So people are upset that they're making it. It's not that it's too hard. It's just obnoxiously hard. Where I just want to kind of like lay back. You have to find a really good
flow. Like the flow of an ARPG is really important because you want it to be challenging at the right times. You don't want it to surprise you with a challenge because those surprises usually mean you die, right? If you're just running along fighting a normal mob and then all of a sudden you just died and you're like, oh, I killed like 20 of these guys already. And I just died to this one. And he's got like some weird modifier that I couldn't have possibly like figured out was going to kill me before it did or something like that. It's a hard thing to balance and figure out. I haven't played the update yet. I'm excited to try it out. But they ramped it up basically the whole thing. Well,
it's not that they ramped it. It depends on who you ask. I really need to just jump in and try it myself. But from what I've heard, it's a lot of the same that it was at release. Some people are saying it's more refined, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case because you would hope that it is. It's been a couple of months since it launched officially in early access. But it's just that I think that early, that newness is has waned, and people are like, okay, I don't know if I want to go through this campaign for 20, 30 hours when it's this slow to eventually get to the end game. Like it's just too much. And so I think they're going to eventually need to find a nice sweet spot where when you're going against white mobs, you can just cruise through them relatively quickly using one or two abilities. And then when you actually encounter those rare or boss mobs, that's when you actually have to use your full kit to be able to drop them. But it's just too much. And I think that's kind of the big sticking point right now.
Yeah, it's interesting coming to Path of Exile as a Diablo fanboy because there is usually a fairly easy, I don't want to say easy, but a path laid in front of you to progress in Diablo. Even if you got to a boss where you couldn't beat the boss, you had options for like, okay, I have a pretty good idea about what I need to change with my gear setup or my skills, or I just need to level up a little bit so I can get this one more thing, or I just need to practice the boss a few times and then I'll get it eventually. Path of Exile 2 sometimes just hits you with a hard wall and you're like, I don't know where to go.
That's what happened to me. That's why I stopped. Is I hit a wall and I'm like, I don't want to grind for potentially 5 hours just to beat a boss, right? Like that's just silly. So I stopped.
Yep. And some of that side grinding too feels really wasteful where you're like, I have to like I have to clear all these different levels just to like try and level up once. Now you're like, I'm just wasting time fighting lower level mobs to try and somehow push my character into a position where he can beat this one boss. It's got issues with that. So I'd be curious to see how this balances it out because I do remember getting to like the final act of the game and getting stuck on a boss where before fighting that boss, I was just crushing everything, you know? And then I get to the boss and it's just a hard wall. And it's like everything stops. I'm like, I have to completely redesign my character, because of this one boss. The game wasn't telling me as I got towards the boss that my build was not good, because the build was killing everything, no problem. I just was sort of a glass cannon, I guess. So I was killing all the other mobs before they could do anything to me.
Before they could kill you.
Yeah, and then the boss is like, yeah, that's not going to work, because if I hit you once, you're done, and then...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The critique I've seen is that the movement of the character is designed around Path of Exile 2, where it's supposed to be slow and methodical, but all of the mobs are flying at you like Path of Exile 1, where it's just they swarm you and there's no way for you to actually interact with your kit to be able to actually use these combos and stuff at the higher levels, which I think that's a fair criticism. I think that's a completely valid complaint. I think they're going to have to kind of refine that more. Also, I do think that the progression is something that they need to dial in as well, because it shouldn't be.
Is just thinking about the parallels between Path of Exile and Balatro, right? You have the most combos and diverse gameplay early on in a run in Balatro, right? You're just looking for whatever you can get. You're like, I've got a straight, I've got a flush, I've got a full house. And then by the end of Balatro, you're
just using one or two abilities. Yeah.
You've dialed it down to, I'm just playing high card every time. I'm going for 2 pair every single time. And same with Path of Exile. In the start, you're like, I'm going to put down, speaking from a sorceress perspective, I'm going to put down a firewall. Then I'm going to shoot my lightning through the firewall. Then I'm going to freeze the dude with my ice walls. And then I'm going to do, and you've got all these combos that you have to do in the right sequence to like get the best damage crits and all that stuff to work. And you get down into a good rhythm and you're kind of like, I'm kicking butt. And then those start to become less effective as you get further on, because the game really needs you to min-max on like very specific abilities. And now my final sorceress build is just show up and just lightning everything to death instantly. And like on occasion cast an ice wall if something's like charging me and I need it to stop. Otherwise, everything on the screen just dies with my one single ability. And you're like, man, the gameplay went from complex and interesting to incredibly simplistic by the end.
And I think that's going to be the really hard challenge that they're going to have to try to overcome, because it's not going to be easy for them to be able to solve that problem at all. But I saw this video of people complaining about Path of Exile 2 while complimenting 1. And they're like, this is 2. And it's like a dude like with a wet noodle slapping a boss and taking 5 years to take it out. And they're like, and back to Path of Exile 1. And it was a guy using one ability, which put like this AoE on the ground and it like nuked the boss instantaneously. I'm like, okay, see, you show that and both of those look bad. I don't know if you're if that's what you were trying to do, but both of those look bad.
Yeah, because ideally you want a boss fight where you're using different abilities at different times to try and find the weak spot, use your best stuff when it makes the most sense to use it, as opposed to just hit A and try not to get hit, and you're just like, okay.
I want it to be challenging. I want it to feel like I'm actually fighting a boss, but you also want there to be a sense of like, if I come back to this boss and I've gotten better and I've gotten better gear, that I am seeing that progression in terms of my power as well. So they need to find that nice line where you feel powerful and there's ways for you to min-max to make yourself feel powerful, but it's not just I hit one button and it's now a glorified cookie clicker. These both extremes, in my opinion, are bad, and they got to find a middle ground.
I tend to agree with you, and I don't think they're going to get away from it, though, because that is sort of built into the nature of an ARPG progression. That's what people want from Diablo. They want to just melt through thousands of dudes like it's that... Was that fighting game you played recently? The Chinese
Dynasty Warriors.
Dynasty Warrior, yeah. It ultimately just turns into some ridiculous Dynasty Warrior thing where you're just mowing through thousands and thousands of dudes as essentially a demigod. Then you get to the boss and all the builds are how to kill the boss instantly or whatever. And okay, I guess that's cool, but now it's not even a boss fight. I'm not even seeing any of their animations, their combos, their cool progression stages. They're just dead, So it's sort of breaking the game, but it's that's also the point of it in a way where you're
there's fun to be had in creating a broken build, but I feel like it only lasts for so long.
Yeah.
because then it's just everything becomes easy and you're like, I mean, I guess now it's just numbers go up, but I'm not interacting with the game anymore.
That's why I got bored of the sorceress, because I got to the point where it was just melting everything. And then I saw the path ahead of me and it was just kind of boring. It was just like, okay, just run like 50 more maps and progress all these kind of trees that are giving me less and less rewards every time I unlock a new node on it. It's like, okay, that's maybe making me like 0.01% better. Cool. So just do this for like...
You beat it. Like, let's be honest, you beat the game.
Well, yeah, I didn't get to like all the end game stuff because there's like, you know, you could sink 100 more hours in and then fight this
You
thing.
effectively beat it though.
Yeah. And so, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, how many games can you say are going to keep you entertained forever that don't involve another player as your ultimate challenge, right? Because that's usually what those games turn into, is like, okay, well, the end game is fighting other players and fighting for territory and having clan wars or something like that, you know, and that keeps you entertained. But trying to keep you entertained endlessly against PvE is next to impossible.
Yep. Agreed.
So your favorite game passed $800 million in funding.
Oh, Star Citizen. Yeah.
You're like my favorite.
I was like, my favorite game.
The one that you've got a giant poster of on the wall, signed by Chris Roberts.
Yeah. Sick, dude. Congratulations to them. Just they're doing it. They're making all the money. They're just making all the.
They have a mecha with rocket jets. Did we talk about that yet?
Maybe.
Yeah. So like they added a robot into the game that's like a power loader for loading cargo onto ships, and now they have a variant of that same robot, and it's like a mining variant, but it's also got jump jets on the back of it, so it can like fly through the air and fly down into caves and all that kind of stuff. And
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So I know, because I played the game, you know, and it's it's got its rough edges.
I haven't played it in quite a while. Just to be fair.
Why is it that, so they've made all this money, and I know they're constantly adding stuff, and they've got so many developers working on it. They've got a lot of people working on the single player, and that's like where their main focus is right now. And like the attention that they bring on over to the multiplayer is, it's not as. Anyways, why is it that elevators still are busted?
Yeah, it's
legitimately. Are they embarrassed by how just walking around the world doesn't work? Because
they should be. Yeah.
Because I get when you're adding new things, it's gonna break stuff, but how much are you adding to just movement that you need to not fix these issues? Because we're gonna be adding all this stuff later on, so that's why we're not fixing elevators.
Yeah. Well, no, it's kind of like when we were playing and we got stuck in a cave system forever, and it's just all jank. They have so much tech debt to go back on and fix. It definitely gives anybody who has any experience in the industry a lot of pause, saying I don't know if they're ever going to make it there. It's fun to watch them try, but they've got such a crazy path ahead of them. It's sometimes hard to imagine. And I've said this for a long time, but I think they're going to have to really back off on their hardcore vision for the game, just because of how buggy it is. Because they want the game to be this thing where if you die, it's a major event. You screwed up and somebody.
But that can
ganked
happen
you.
Because of a glitch, and it will happen.
I think I've died many more times to glitches than I have another player. Maybe a factor of 10 or 20. There's been times where just the server was lagging and I thought I wasn't accelerating, and then I was accelerating, and then I smashed my ship into the side of a station and exploded. And you're just that happens all the time. Yeah. And to get Star Citizen to work on the level that they actually have designed it to, which is the whole death of the spaceman concept and all these high level things where people aren't supposed to die frequently, they have to fix every single issue 100%. Because if it even happens once, if I'm playing the game for a month and I die once to a horrible glitch, And that once sets me back a week, which I think, could be a reality once you're at a higher level of play. That could be like a I quit the game type moment.
I don't want to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. They have to fix all that, or more realistically, they're just going to have to backtrack on all of their hardcore plans for the game, which they've been doing a little bit in certain ways here and there, and then not in other ways. They've been making it more difficult and more laborious in other areas. So there's a lot of disjointedness with the way that they're approaching it. And I saw an interesting post by somebody online talking about Star Citizen, where they're like, CIG's basing all of their game design feedback on players who are willing to put up with the absolute joke of a state that this game is in. Yeah. The majority of the player base who would want to play a game like this when it's finished will not put up with this, and therefore you're not getting any of their feedback on what they want for a game. This whole game is like the feedback and the direction is probably being way too heavily weighted towards players who are so in love with the idea of a space sim that they're willing to look past so many design flaws and so many issues that might not be the ultimate feedback that you want for how to balance or design a game in terms of appealing to a larger audience at the end of the day. So it was kind of an interesting subject that they brought up, where I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. Like, they're going to have to really read between the lines with a lot of that feedback and sort of rely on their own instincts to make a good game, as opposed to just listening to the player base exclusively on stuff. But at the same time, and I've said this before, I'm more excited now for Squadron 42 than I am the multiplayer game, because I see that as
me too.
Something that could happen in the nearish future and potentially to a polished level, where Star Citizen's multiplayer is like, I don't see that becoming polished anytime soon, even though this whole year is supposed to be dedicated to polishing it. It's got so far to go before
they
it's going to be
themselves at this point. Like, 800 million. Congratulations to them. Like, that's awesome. Good for them. But they gotta prove because when they added in the new, what was it, Pyro? That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. You added in a new area. Why? Why did you do that? Why aren't you focusing on the base version?
Yeah.
And just tighten that up, and then like it's like you said, they just keep ballooning and ballooning and ballooning and ballooning. It's just so big and big. Like, yeah, the idea of Pyro is really cool, because that's supposed to be where it's like outlaws, and that's where maybe your PvP is going to be more. But you could have done like a PvP area inside of like the base system, right? It didn't need to be an entirely brand new system to accomplish that goal. Yeah. And it's just, once again, another example of them just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, yeah.
And then if you realize that the fundamentals that you've designed don't quite work and you have to go in and redesign, now you've got double the content to redesign. Now you got triple the content. Now you got quadruple. Like, it just becomes impossible to balance later due to the amount of work you have ahead of you. Unless you design the game really well, in which case it can all kind of be adjusted at the base level. But we'll see.
The vision's so cool. I want.
Did you see the trailer for their new event that's in game?
No.
The trailer is gorgeous. It is so cool. It's like what you imagine Star Citizen to be, right? It's like, it looks like Battlefield, but where you can transition from a planet surface to a aerial battle to a space station battle, and then the space station fires a giant laser down to the surface and starts like blowing this shit. It looks so cool, and you can technically do that stuff in game, but you will never see it like they showed it in the trailer. It's like, that's a really cool looking example of what maybe one day might be possible, but probably not.
Probably not.
So it's unfortunate, because it does look so cool and you want it to be real, but it's hard to imagine. I'll be here if it looks awesome, if it comes together someday. But I
heard that the upcoming CitizenCon is going to be digital this year.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that one, but interesting. Considering that they hit their budget goal, I think they're doing okay budget-wise this year. I'd have to check it out, but I wonder what the reason for that might be. Maybe it's because
Maybe because so much effort to put on a live show and it's pointless, and
I think
put
it
that money towards something
derails
else.
their progress quite a bit, to be honest.
Yeah,
Because
probably does.
I mean, speaking from my own experience of having to get even just video content ready to deliver for a trailer, for a devlog, for a couple of like magazines that are like, hey, we need some exclusive footage for a game. And I go, okay, well, we want to put out the best stuff. Now I'm pulling people off of whatever they are working on to fix weird little issues that are messing with the footage that I'm trying to make, you know, or I'm like, hey, this gun thing doesn't quite collide right. And it, you know, nobody's going to probably notice, but it'd be better if we just fixed it. And then I can record a nice clean clip. And then they're getting pulled off of the task at hand, which was like cleaning up some sort of bigger material system that we need for the entire game to work, you know? And I'm sure that's what it's like for Star Citizen every single year, but on a massively extrapolated scale of like, here's a huge event that's going to happen for like 2-3 days, whatever it is, 2 days, I guess. And then it's going to take like a quarter of the team all focusing on it. And we're going to have to pull in resources from everywhere to fix up all the little things. And sometimes that can be good for kind of pushing teams to like get their content done and ready to go in time. But I would imagine it's also caused them a huge amount of delays. So
I would imagine so.
Since I always watch CitizenCon, doing it digitally is fine with me. In fact, it means less time is spent on stuff like the cosplay shows, which I don't really care about. You know, fine if you do, but it's not why I show up for the show. So from my perspective, I would prefer it to be just digital. Show me the cool trailers, do your little talks, don't waste as much dev time, and get down to business making the game better.
Yeah. So congrats to the 800 million Star Citizen. Just make your game, please. Please make a game.
Yeah. Well, and we'll be there for it when it's good and fun.
Yeah.
And not buggy.
I'll definitely play it.
Yep. What do you think about Tencent buying a 25% stake in Rainbow Six, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their hand in so many pies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They're very hands off from what it sounds like. So I don't think it's really going to impact the way the games are made. They're an investment corporation and they've invested in so many different projects. And I don't know if there's been anything that's come out to be like they've demanded that a game is a certain way.
Yeah.
So I doubt it will affect the game's long term.
It sounds like it's going to keep Ubisoft alive for quite a while because 1 point whatever billion dollars they spent for a 25% stake in 3 IPs. I mean, that's
damn. It's all their big ones too.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Like all of their big titles.
It's their biggest ones. They didn't get like Tom Clancy stuff, but I think Tom Clancy has been, aside from Rainbow Six, I guess, which is Tom Clancy. Do they even say Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six? They don't say that, do they? It's just Rainbow Six Siege.
They might still. I don't know. It's Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they don't have, The Division or something, but also that's not a moneymaker for Ubisoft anymore, really, Yeah. Speaking of moneymakers and big IPs and companies, did you see the little teaser trailer for Marathon?
I did. I don't know what to think. It looks very colorful and beautiful, and there's a cool RoboCat.
I'm going to have to put on sunglasses to play that game, dude. The saturation is off the charts.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, the gameplay is what's going to matter. It's Bungie. They've always been really good when it comes to weapons and how they handle, and the environmental details has always been top quality. It's just, what's the gameplay loop going to be? Is it going to be a more casual Tarkov? Is it going to be something different? We don't know.
Yep. I mean, I'm intrigued by the art. I do like the original Marathon lore. There's a lot of interesting stuff there that's like only for like old game nerds to know about these days, but it is some interesting, it's cool concepts, and they have fleshed out a universe, but this Marathon teaser is like so beyond anything that's been previously established. You're like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how close it's following that, or if they're just kind of reinventing the IP or what. But I'm very curious about it. I think, funny enough, the least exciting thing about the game is that it's a Royale to me.
Is it a Royale? I thought it was more of a extraction game.
Okay,
but I could be wrong.
Maybe it's an extraction game. Extraction Royale, I don't know. They kind of cross the line all the time anyway, where you're just like, it's Royale extraction-y or something, whatever it is.
Yeah, the what I remembered was it being an extraction, but I mean it's.
I think you're right.
Maybe they're going to change it. If it is an extraction, I'm really curious to see how they handle the end game, because that's one thing I don't think any extraction shooter has ever. I don't think there's ever been a successful extraction shooter made yet. I don't even think Tarkov has successfully been able to figure out how to make a extraction shooter long term, because you get to the end,
people burn out at the end of the season.
Yeah,
right. They're like,
I
don't know what to do now. Yeah,
they've never figured out how to keep that loop going and keep people engaged once they reach the end, because they have to have resets. Like everyone comes back for the wipe in Tarkov because they've all left because they're like, I'm bored now. It's like, so I'm really curious. They're obviously successful. I maybe that was the wrong terminology to use, but I don't think there's ever been an extraction game that has been able to keep people engaged for that loop continuously without having it just to completely like, all right, we're starting over. So
have they tried seasons or modifiers to a degree where like, this season here's these modifiers that are in play?
Yeah.
Have they done that?
Maybe that's it.
I don't know.
Because like you could make the same argument for ARPGs, right? People come back for Diablo, or they come back to Path of Exile 1, not because they're playing their same character, but because they're making a new character and they're starting literally over. And
the
that might just be the
has
genre.
A new set of rules, right? Where you're like, oh, this is really powerful now. So now you try stuff. It's like a really long-term roguelite.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So where they change the rules, but not every time you play, but every couple of months or something.
Right.
Which I can see the appeal to. I don't know. There's a lot of angles there. Bungie is such a prestigious company that has not really dropped the ball in a long time in terms of like inventing an IP. Certainly the way they've handled Destiny.
I was going to say, I feel like they've dropped the ball a little bit.
Yeah. They dropped the ball a bit with Destiny, but also I think they're kind of just, I feel like, I don't know what the numbers on Destiny were, but I feel like it must have been pittering out and they just didn't quite know how to wrap things up in a concrete way.
They got to the issue where they've had a story that's been developing for a decade, and then they finally concluded that story, and the obvious conclusion of that is people are like, okay, thank you for the story, I had fun, I'm no longer playing anymore, because it wrapped it up and we're done, right?
It was the Avengers Endgame of the Marvel universe.
Exactly.
You're like, and then people are like, come back and watch the Ant-Man movie or the Black Widow movie, and people are like,
no, I don't think I will.
Nah, we already saw the big battle. What, now you want me to watch a side story about some Assassin's Guild or something? Boring. No Earth destruction in this one? No thanks, It's the problem when you're
ironically, those are the ones I actually like the most, are the non, cosmic level destruction.
Yeah. I actually really like the one of the Doctor Strange movies, the more recent one, and then the Deadpool and Wolverine one was fantastic.
I still need to see that. I hear it's scary. It's great.
Yeah, but I didn't even know about the new Hulk Captain America thing. I don't know what it is.
I saw advertisements for it.
I saw the posters in the movie theater when I was taking my kid to go see the Dogman movie or whatever. Dogman. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. I guess I'm just not the right demo anymore. The ads are not fed to me,
Yep.
Granted, I don't really see a lot of ads anymore. It's kind of when I was on vacation at my parents' house, they watch, they're old people now, so they watch like Jeopardy. They do that thing in the evenings, watch Jeopardy on TV, and then their ad plays, and like sort of struck me. I'm like, I haven't seen like a TV ad in so long, like
ages.
It's kind of.
Do you have regular TV?
I mean, they do. No, I don't. No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just stream stuff and pay for, if we want to watch a sports thing, we'll pay for the subscription and then unsubscribe when the season's over.
You're a modern man, LevelCap.
Yeah, well, I mean, TV became unappealing so long ago, and all the good shows are streamable. So it's like, why?
And now we're going back with these goddamn companies who are like, so we've made a lot of money. And we've raised your prices about as much as we can so far. But what if we added advertisements to your viewing experience?
Yeah.
Bruh, it pisses me off so much. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
We're back to where we were. Stop.
Well, now you got to pay more to get past the ads,
It's nonsense. Yeah. As soon
as
they added
it does suck.
The ads to Prime, I was like, I hate you so much. Here's more money because piss off.
Yeah. It is funny because you're like, yeah, you are back to where you are. You are now paying to watch a program on TV that you will get interrupted with ad breaks for. Although, when you used to pay, I would argue it's in some cases it's a little worse. Where in at least back in the day, if you paid for like the HBO subscription or whatever, they'd play a movie and that movie didn't get interrupted by ad breaks, So while there were a lot of paid access channels that did have ads, a lot of them also didn't have ads while you're watching your program on it. They might have a little bit in between, but as long as you showed up at the time the movie's supposed to start, you're good to watch it. So yeah, a little backwards. I did start to watch Severance and I'm not very far into it. But I'm excited. The show's just so well constructed. Like all the acting, all the scenes, everything is just
great.
You're just gripped by it. You're just like, man, I have no idea what's happening, but I'm so enthralled with it.
Buckle up.
Yeah, it's great story.
It's a fun show.
Yeah, I like. You know what it kind of reminds me of, and this is totally not a fair comparison to Severance because it's miles beyond the quality of this movie. But did you ever see The Cube? Do you know that movie?
The Cube? No.
I believe it's called The Cube. I want to look it up. The Cube. It's like old as
1997.
Yeah. It's like a weird low budget sci-fi movie where this person like wakes up inside of a cube shaped room and it's sort of like a puzzle and they have to try and figure out how to get out. But the room is attached to another room and then they like find other people that are also trapped in their cube rooms, but each room has like different rules and puzzles and some of the traps are lethal so people get killed and stuff. And like it's interesting because it doesn't tell you anything about the world that they're in until it starts to progress a little bit further and further and they start to uncover clues and ideas behind like where they are and why they're there.
Yeah.
But Severance has sort of got this vibe about it where it's like they're in this underground facility. There's no windows. There's no representation of the outside world in any way whatsoever. And they are only piecing it together by clues that they find and have heard and have read about or whatever of what everything else is like. They really don't know much about the outside world. And that's kind of, I don't know. It just kind of, I like that for some reason. It's just such a fun, weird concept to play with.
Yeah. No, the concept is definitely one of the best driving forces of that show, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the acting's fantastic too.
Yes. Very good.
So good. So yeah, I watched a little bit of that. No new movies, I don't think. I can't remember. Oh, God, I did watch something. Man, this is like one of those things. I feel like I just need to ignore any time a movie's like Academy Award winner, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm done with the Academy Awards. Okay. I watched
Stinkers.
What was it called? The Brutalist. Did you hear about that one?
The Brutalist. I've heard the name.
Yeah. So it's like, now, granted, I went into it with a misconception. I thought the movie was about a famous architect who made brutalism.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned this before.
Yeah. So I thought it was about a famous architect that made brutalism famous, and I was excited to watch it. They kind of made up that character though, because the movie The movie's very dark. It's got some beautiful cinematography at points. People say it's a beautifully shot film. I think it's a very dark and muddy film with a couple of good shots in it. But the story gets so over the top. Yes, actually. It gets so over the top in how just unfortunate and crappy this dude's life is that you're like, this can't be possible. And halfway through watching the movie, I look it up and I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't a real story. I thought it was a real dude. And so then I just got really annoyed for the one. It was just, it's just a downer the whole time.
That's too bad.
And then you're like, okay, well, if this was a real dude's story, then I'm willing to sit through it because it's kind of like exceptionally insane. And then you're like, wait, this is a super downer about somebody who never even existed and about a building he's building that never existed either.
It's called fantasy. Come on.
Yeah, it's like historical fiction. And I guess they combined a bunch of stories of real life architects. Anyway, I got annoyed by it and it was insanely long. Very disjointed, some interesting ideas there, but it's just like, I think it's one of those things where directors are just running away with these concepts and nobody's reeling them back in like, hey, this movie has to provide some sort of joy to somebody. And I feel like all those Academy Award winners now are just like, oh, look at this movie that is like embodied the trauma of blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, okay. And then it's like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's go watch it. And
the reviews are fantastic.
Yeah. And then you're like, who actually enjoyed this movie?
Apparently a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird though. I was starting to read the user reviews and like there was a lot of people that were just like, who on earth can sit through this film? It is like absolute blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, how is it 97% with so many people saying that this is like torture to watch?
You just don't understand art. Maybe you should go watch the Minecraft movie, LevelCap. Maybe that would more be up your alley.
Yeah. You know, I think when I was younger, I'll probably end up watching it because my kids are into Minecraft.
Well, I was joking around.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Apparently the show or the movie Minecraft is a lot of fun for kids. Kids are loving it.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. I'll even get a little pretentious about those movies where I'm like, you can have a good children's movie that also appeals to adults.
You can.
So, hopefully, I haven't seen Minecraft, but hopefully it falls into that category, but I hear probably not so much.
I hear it's a little not so the case, but I hear it's not like garbage where you're like, I want to walk out, but it's made for the audience that it's trying to go after.
Dogman, I was absolute torture. It reminded me of that scene from Clockwork Orange where the dude's eyes are like opened up and they're like forcing him to watch horrific things.
Bad, huh?
Yeah, I was
the
just
kids
like,
loved it, and that's why you're there.
Yeah,
that's why you're there.
It gave me PTSD, but anyway, yeah, I was younger, maybe a little more pretentious and just like snooty about film stuff, and I might have enjoyed The Brutalist, but now I'm just like, God, 3 hours of just some dude getting essentially tortured by everything. Like, it's too much.
That's rough.
It does awful. Not get a recommendation from me, man.
Yeah.
It's just pretentious filmmaking looking for an Academy Award, which they got.
Which it got, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
They call it Oscar bait, which is like all these movies where they're like, this is a movie about somebody who grew up in a time of persecution and suffered endlessly. And now we're going to cast this guy who's just going to cry the whole time and be in horrible pain. And look how good he is at acting and like he's in terrible pain. And they're like, oh, clap, clap, clap. Give him all the Oscars. What a great film that really showed all the important stuff. And like on one hand, sure. I get it. On the other hand, just I think I've hit the point where I'm like, I don't want to watch any more of those movies. I want to be happy.
I just don't want to watch movies anymore.
I just want to watch something make me happy. Show me a story. It can have its ups and downs, but leave me on it.
I do. It's fun. It's definitely funny to hear that.
Oh, bro, like a little bit of a spoiler alert, but like, you know how the phrase is like, it's not about the. Okay, I'm gonna mispronounce this, but it's like it's not about. The destination is about the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that I don't know if that's the exact way that phrase goes, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's good enough.
This movie ends quite literally saying it's not about the journey, it's about the destination. And you're just like, Jesus, like you're basically saying like, at the very end, maybe some good came from this dude's
maybe some
horrific
good came out of it.
life.
Yeah, he's a better person because of it, because the journey was terrible.
Yeah.
But at least it ended decently.
And I'm just like, oh my God, like they're basically the message, even the message at the end.
I mean, if you think about
depressing.
it, if you got punched in the stomach 1,000 times, but you got $1 billion for it. The destination mattered more than the journey. Right?
Okay, but then show me the movie about you living your life with $1 billion. I don't want to watch a movie about you getting punched in the stomach 1,000 times.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, show me the part where you get to buy a mansion and like fly a private jet everywhere and like become a rich a-hole or something, you know? Like that would be
the American dream, baby.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, that's my curmudgeon-y movie review, but
fair enough.
I'm saving you guys 3 hours of your life. Don't watch The Brutalist. It was brutal. It lived up to its name. Well, shall we wrap up the old Potteroonie there?
Sounds good.
You got any advice for our wonderful listeners?
What is my advice? No advice this week. I was sick for like a week.
Dang.
So yeah. So I guess my advice is take care of yourself. Be healthy. Drink lots of water. I got nothing better than that.
How do you get sick, Matt? You don't see anybody else.
I went outside.
Oh,
yeah.
That was the mistake.
I decided to go outside, and then there was people, and like probably someone coughed, and yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Shouldn't have done it.
Stay in your streamer room, dude. Don't don't go out. Well, thank you guys all so much for watching. Thanks for watching the Level With Me podcast. If you want to support us, check us out on Patreon. The link is down below. Podcast is every Wednesday. And if you're a Patreon member, you can hang out afterwards. We record live on Mondays. As always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.